everyone. I'm glad you're here. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm Mary with Mary Greeley News. Here's my second video that I'm going to make about all the terrible, horrific things that are happening there in Israel. I am really going to have to put one on Rumble, going into more details, because that will not be allowed here on YouTube. I want to start out with the name of Hamas. I wanted to know where that name came from. I believe it's Hebrew. It comes from Genesis 6:11. This is from the days of Noah. Right there. Hamas. The earth was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And that actually is the word Hamas. And then in Genesis 6:13, it says, God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence, Hamas, through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. And that's when he created the flood, which is real interesting, because this terrorist attack upon Israel, Hamas is calling it Al-Aqsa Flood. Notice the word flood in there. Now, Al-Aqsa, I know I'm pronouncing it wrong. You know I have trouble pronouncing words. This is the area, the entire area, where the Temple Mound is at. This area is controlled by Jordan. And it's like, okay, why is it controlled by Jordan? Well, evidently, because of the First World War and Second World War, this whole area was taken over by Western countries, divided up. They made an agreement with Turkey and Syria to divide up the Middle East after those wars. More about that in a minute. So Jordan became part of Israel, okay, in 1946, 1948. It was all divided up between the 12 tribes of Israel. Two of the tribes basically turned to the religion of Muhammad, Muslims. And then the western side and the southern side, that's for Christians and Jews. Let me go over here. Okay, real interesting. Let me zoom in. So, because it's basically ruled by the Muslim religion, they do not want any Christians or Jews to be allowed within the area of the temple, the entire area. A few days before this war broke out, Rabbi Gillick, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, took a group of Jewish people under guards. The area is controlled, like I said, by Jordan. Security is provided by them. And a group of up to maybe 200 Jewish people went to worship. One of them supposedly brought in a citrus. It's part of the Jewish religion. Kind of looks like a lemon. There's an image of it, and they put them in cases, and they're supposed to wave them around because of their pungent aroma. So one person supposedly brought this into the area of the Temple Mound, and yeah, the Muslims really got ticked off. They were under escorts. It was really extremely exaggerated what happened there, saying that they were overrun. Yeah, it was almost like a giant protest, but all the images that I found online just shows peaceful Jewish citizens going to the area. Transjordan, okay, this goes back to, yeah, some history here. The 12 tribes back in the day divided up into two different groups. One group, which is Judah and Benjamin, became the area, or settled in the area of Jordan, which is now Jordan. The Persians came in, Babylonia, gathered up the tribes. Many of them were scattered, as you know, and a lot of them stayed there in that area. And they adopted the Muslim religion. That goes back to the day of Abraham. Abraham didn't think he could have a child with his wife Sarah. And so Sarah gave her Egyptian slave to Abraham, and they had a child. Now that child was named Ishmael, and Ishmael and his mother were cast out into the desert, probably hopefully to die, by Sarah, his original first wife. But Ishmael is the descendant, the original patriarch, I guess you would say, who later had Muhammad, who started the Muslim religion. And that is probably the best, simplest way I can explain the division of Israel, with the 10 tribes and the 2 tribes of Judah and Benjamin. The Assyrians at one time took over the area of Israel, and they actually put pagan statues there in Jerusalem. The Assyrians is now in the area of Syria. Sarah did eventually have a child. She thought she was too old, and when the angels of God came to them and told them that she was going to have a child, she laughed at her. But anyways, through Sarah is the 12 tribes of Israel. I know, really confusing. I've been researching this, digging into the details for the last day and a half. After the Israelites took possession of the promised land, each was assigned a section of land by Joshua, who replaced Moses as leader after his death. The tribe of Judah settled in the region of south of Jerusalem, and in time became the most powerful and most important tribe. That is where King David was, where Jesus was born, in that area, not Jerusalem, but Bethlehem, of course, and King Solomon. Not only did it produce the great kings, David and Solomon, but also was the prophet, the Messiah, who come from among its members. Modern Jews, moreover, tracing their lineage to the tribes of Judah and Benjamin, absorbed by Judah, or to the tribes or groups of clans of the religion. Functionaries known as Levites. The Levites were not given any land. They were considered the judges. This situation was brought about by the Assyrian conquest of the kingdom of Israel in 721 BC, which led to the partial dispersion of the 10 northern tribes and their gradual assimilation by other people. The southern kingdom of Judah thrived until 587, maybe 586 BC, when it was overrun by the Babylonians, who carried off the inhabitants into exile. When the Persian conqueror, Babylonian, again, this is probably modern-day Iran. In 538 BC, Cyrus the Great allowed the Jews to return to the homeland, where they soon set to work to replace the magnificent temple of Jerusalem that the Babylonians had destroyed. The history of the Jews from that time forward is predominantly, getting tongue-tied, the history of the tribe of Judah. So those are the 2 remaining tribes of the 12 tribes. 10 of the tribes were dispersed, and the 2 tribes, like I said, they were assimilated and they became Muslims. Not all of them, but many of them. And that's coming up to modern history. The current ruler of Jordan is monarch, His Majesty King Abdullah II, I guess, Al-Hussein. And their roots come from the prophet Abraham, from his son Ishmael. Now that's the descendant, the Egyptian slave's son. So all this fighting that's going on, they're actually related to each other in a sense. They're stepbrothers going back through time. Going back to 1916, after the Arab revolt against the Ottomans during World War I, the region was divided up by Britain and France with the Emirate of Transjordan. They were their own little country back then, established in 1921, becoming a British protectorate. Jordan became independent in 1946. Jordan captured the West Bank in the 1948 Arab-Israeli War and annexed it until Israeli forces took it during the Six-Day War in 1967. Jordan gave up its claim to the territory in 1988 and in 1994 became the second Arab state to sign the peace treaty with Israel. It is home to some 2 million Palestinian refugees since the start of the civil war in Syria. It has seen an influx of some 1.2 million Syrian refugees, placing a substantial strain on the resources and infrastructure. After World War II in 1947, the United Nations adopted a partition plan for mandatory Palestine, which recommended the creation of independent Arab, that would be Muslim, and the Jewish states in an internationalized Jerusalem. The partition plan was accepted by the Jews but rejected by the Arabs. Immediately after the United Nations General Assembly adopted the plan, as Resolution 181, a civil war broke out in Palestine, and the plan was not implemented. The day after the establishment of the State of Israel, on May 14, 1948, neighboring Arab countries invaded the former British Mandate and engaged in Israeli forces in the First Arab-Israeli War. Later, the All-Palestinian Government was established by the Arab League on the 22nd of September 1948 to govern the All-Palestinian Protectorate in the Egyptian-occupied Gaza Strip. Many people, and even I, thought it's always been ruled by Israel, but evidently it was ruled by Egypt. Between 1949 and 1967, the present-day Palestinian territory, known as the Gaza Strip, is occupied by Egyptian forces from firstly the Kingdom of Egypt and secondly from 1958 onward the United Arab Republic UAR. The Egyptian occupation of Gaza began with the interception of the territory in 1949 following the First Arab-Israeli War and ended after Egypt's defeat to Israel in the Third Arab-Israeli War of 1967, after which the Israeli occupation of the Gaza Strip commenced. Egyptian rule of the Gaza before 1967 war had been continuous, kind of like what Israel's going through right now, with the exception of a brief period from October 1956 to March of 1957, when Israel invaded the occupied Gaza, as well as the Sinai Peninsula during the Suez Crisis. From 1948 until its dissolution by Egyptian President Nasser in 1959, the Gaza Strip was officially administered by the All-Palestinian Government. Though largely symbolic, the government was recognized by most members of the Arab League. Following its dissolution, Egypt did not annex the Gaza Strip but kept it under military rule, pending a resolution of the Israeli-Palestine question. Okay, going back to this, Israel later captured the Gaza Strip and the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt, the West Bank and East Jerusalem from Jordan, and the Golan Heights from Syria during the Six-Day War in June of 1967. They want to go back to the drawn-out borders from the Six-Day War in 1967, evidently. On November 15, 1988, Algeria's then chairman, the PLO, Yasser Arafat, proclaimed the establishment of the State of Palestine, a year after the signing of the Oslo Accord in 1993. The PNA was formed to govern in varying degrees of area, A and B, in the West Bank, and goes on about the Gaza Strip. After Hamas became the PNA parliament leading party in mostly recent elections, 1966, a conflict broke out between it and the Fatah party, leading to the Gaza being taken over by Hamas in 2007. 2 years after the Israeli disengagement. Palestine is a member of the Arab League, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. And it goes on about other things here. All the agreements that were started during World War I and World War II to divide up the Middle East by the Western states basically were not kept at all. All the different countries basically wanted to extend their borders. Turkey, France, Syria, you name it, Britain, etc. Turkey joined in because they wanted the Ottomans out. That was during World War I. 1923, the Conference of San Remo, a mandate was created out of the old Ottoman province of Syria, and the northern half of Syria and Lebanon was mandated to France, the southern half of Persia to Great Britain. I mean, it's such a big mess over there. April 1921, the British had decided that Abdullah would take over as ruler and become as Transjordan. Effectively, Turkish rule in Transjordan was simply replaced by British rule, the mandate confirmed by the League of Nations in July of 1922, which gave the British virtually a free hand in administrating the territories, dividing it up. However, in September, the establishment of a Jewish national home was explicitly excluded from the mandate's clause, and it was made clear that the area would be closed to Jewish immigration. The reason I'm bringing it up is I was wondering how Jordan had gained so much power in that area, and, the control of Israel and Jerusalem. Throughout the interwar years, Abdullah had depended on British financial support. The British also assisted him in forming the elite force called the Arab League, comprising of Bedouin troops, but under the command and trained by British officers, which was used to maintain and secure the allegiance of Abdullah's Bedouin subjects. Then in 1948, the day after the Jewish Agency proclaimed the independent state of Israel, and immediately following the British withdrawal from Palestine, Transjordan joined its Arab neighbors in the First Arab-Israeli War. Abdullah's primary purpose, which he had spelled out in secret discussions with Jewish envoys, was to extend his rule to include the area allotted to the Palestinian Arabs under the United Nations Partition Resolution of November of 1947. Accordingly, he engaged his forces in the region of Palestine, known popularly as the West Bank, the area west of the Jordan River, and expelled Jewish forces from East Jerusalem, the Old City. When the Jordan-Israeli armistice was signed in April 1949, the West Bank and East Jerusalem, an area of about 2,100 square miles, came under Jordanian rule, and almost half of the million Palestinian Arabs joined the 500,000 of Transjordanians 1 year later. Jordan formally annexed this territory. Israel and Britain had tactically agreed to Abdullah keeping the area, but the Arab countries and most of the world opposed the king's action. Only Britain and Pakistan recognized the annexation, the incorporation into Jordan of the West Bank Palestinians, and a large refugee population that was hostile to the Hazmat region brought severe economic and political consequences. On the other hand, Abdullah gained such Muslim shrines as the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem's old city, which compensated for his brother's loss of Mecca and Media to a generation, gives a name, I'm not going to pronounce it, a generation earlier. So this is my opinion. The Gaza Strip and Jordan are descendants from Ishmael. the half-brother to the 12 tribes of Israel. Hagar, when she was pregnant, ran away from Sarah, and an angel of the Lord evidently appeared to her and said this, "You are now pregnant, you will give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. He will be," talking about Ishmael, "will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. He will live in hostility towards his brothers, all his brothers," meaning the 12 tribes. Other translations say he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. What does wild donkey of a man mean? Like a wild donkey, Ishmael will have no master. He will be independent and hard to oppress. Now here it says Ishmael was about 14 years old when Isaac was born. A year or a few years later, when Isaac was weaned, Sarah saw Ishmael mocking her son. Sarah asked Abraham to send Hagar and Ishmael away, and God told Abraham to comply. The angel of God met Hagar and her son once again and predicted for the third time that Ishmael would be the father of a great nation. That would be in Genesis 21:18. Later in Israel history, the Ishmaelites were also called Midianites, although not all Midianites were descended from Ishmael, and they engaged in buying and selling of slaves. And it gives Genesis 37:39 and Judges 8. It tells us that it was the custom for Ishmaelites to wear gold earrings. During the reign of King David, the Ishmaelites joined the confederacy against God, against his people, Israel. Psalms 83:5-6. The goal was to destroy them as a nation, so that Israel's name is remembered no more. Verse 4. Considering the current turmoil in the Middle East, the hatred often directed against Israel by her neighbors, the prophecies concerning the descendants of Ishmael continues to prove true. And then, evidently, Jacob's son Joseph was the one that was sold into slavery by his brothers to the Ishmaelites. So you hear about the kidnappings that have gone on. About 130 people have been kidnapped, along with 1,200 people murdered by them. The Palestinians. Yeah, it's like history repeating itself. And Joseph is the one that ended up in Egypt with Pharaoh, who stockpiled the food ahead of time for the great famine. And then it goes into the story of Moses and the Israelites, asking for their freedom and, etc. Yeah, very interesting, I thought, the things that I found. But anyways, what are your thoughts? Put your comments down below. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. If you have any comments, things to add, please add it below. Please be nice. Nothing negative about different religions or whatever. Yeah, half-brothers fighting against the 12 tribes. Thank you for watching. Please stay safe, and I'll talk to you later. God bless y'all. Bye.